Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shikam Vitamscha Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gaurva Bhistam Supurkam Gurgana Rasesha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govinda Vidam Ujwalam Bharatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Nawe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanam Suchanda Varanam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shivaram Maneka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shridaram Vanshakopatarubyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevaja Patitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is chapter 25 of the Madhya-lila. The residents of Varanasi become Vaishnavas. And we'll start with verse number 71. Prakashananda Prabhu Bandila Charan, Prakashananda Shitara Darila Charan. After stopping the kirtan, after finishing kirtan, Mahaprabhu, who is a great example of humility, offered prayers unto the feet of Prakashananda Saraswati. At this, Prakashananda Saraswati immediately came forward and clasped the Lord's lotus feet. Prabhu ko he tumi jagat guru priyatam, ami tomara na hoy sishyara sishyazam. When Prakashananda Saraswati caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord said, "My dear sir, you are the spiritual master of the whole world. Therefore, you are most worshipable. As far as I am concerned, I'm not even on the level of the disciple of your disciple." Shrestha hoya keni kara hinera bandhan amara sarvanash hoy tumi brahmasam. Mahaprabhu continued, "You are a great spiritually advanced personality, and therefore you cannot worship a person like me. I am far inferior. If you do so, my spiritual power will be diminished, for you are as good as Brahman itself." Jajapi tamara sab Brahma samabhashe lokasika lage aiche koritena aishe. My dear sir, for you everyone is on the level of Brahman, but for the enlightenment of people in general, you should not behave in that way. Teho kohe tomara purve ninda paradna korila tomara charana sparshe sabak koi gila. Prakashananda Saraswati replied, "Formerly I committed many offenses against you by blaspheming you, but now the effects of my offenses are counteracted by my touching your lotus feet. Jivan mukta api punar janti samsara vasanam jadapi achintya maha shakto bhagavati aparadina." If a person considered liberated in this life commits offenses against the reservoir of inconceivable potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will again fall down and desire the material atmosphere for material enjoyment. Savai Bhagavata Srimad Parasparsha Ato Shubha Beche Sarpa Vapurhitva Rupam Vidyadararchitam, being touched by the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the serpent was immediately freed from the reactions of his sinful life. Thus the serpent gave up his body and assumed the body of a beautiful Vidyadhara demigod. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. The inhabitants of Vrindaban, under the leadership of Nanda Maharaj, once went to the bank of the Saraswati on a pilgrimage. Nanda Maharaj was fasting and he lay down near the forest. At that time a serpent, who was formerly cursed by Angirasa Rishi, appeared. The serpent had formerly been named Sudarshan, and he had belonged to the Gandharva Loka planet. However, because he joked with the Rishi, he was condemned to take on the body of a big snake. When this serpent attacked Nanda Maharaj, Nanda Maharaj began to call, "Krishna, help!" Krishna immediately appeared and began to kick the serpent with his lotus feet. Due to being touched by the Lord's lotus feet, the serpent was immediately saved from the reactions of his sinful life. Being freed, he again assumed his original form of Sudarshan, the Gandharva. Prabhu kohe Vishnu Vishnu amikudra jivahin jive Vishnu maniye aparadachina. When Prakashananda Saraswati supported himself by quoting the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu immediately protested by uttering the holy name of Lord Vishnu. The Lord then presented himself as a most fallen living entity, and he said, if someone accepts a fallen conditioned soul as Vishnu, Bhagavan, or an incarnation, he commits a great offense. Although Mahaprabhu was Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to teach us a lesson, he nonetheless denied belonging to the Vishnu category. Unfortunately, there are many so-called Vishnu incarnations in this age of Kali. People do not know that posing oneself as an incarnation is most offensive. People should not accept an ordinary man as an incarnation of God, for this also is a very great offense. Jibe Vishnu Buddhi Dure, Jai Brahma Rudrasam, Narayane Monetare, Pashandite Ganan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued to say nothing of ordinary living entities. Even Lord Brahman, Lord Shiva, cannot be considered on the level of Vishnu or Narayan. If one considers them as such, he is immediately considered an offender, an atheist. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samat Venaivam Viksheta Napashandi Bhavedruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahman Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayan is to be considered an offender, a Pashandi. Prakashananda kohe tumi sakat Bhagavan tabu jadi koratara dasha abhiman. Prakashananda replied, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Nonetheless, you are considering yourself his eternal servant. Tabu puja hao tumi bora amahoite sarvanash hoy mora tomara nindate. My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Lord, and although you consider yourself the Lord's servant, you are nonetheless worshipable. You are much greater than I am. Therefore, all my spiritual achievements have been lost because I have blasphemed you. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. O great sage, out of many millions of materially liberated people who are freed from ignorance, and out of many millions of siddhas who have nearly attained perfection, there is hardly one pure devotee of Narayan. Only such a devotee is actually completely satisfied and peaceful. Ayush Shriyam Yashodharmam Lokan Asisha Evaja Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani Pumsa Mahanatikrama. When a person mistreats great souls, his lifespan, opulence, reputation, religion, possessions, and good fortune are all destroyed. Naisham matis tavad urukramangrim sparshati anarta bhagamo yadarta mahiyasam pararajobhishekam niskinchananam na vrinita yavat. Unless human society accepts the dust of the lotus feet of great Mahatmas, devotees who have nothing to do with material possessions, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. Those lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable conditions of material life. Ebe tomara parabje upajive bhakti tati lagi kore tomar charane pranati. Henceforward, I shall certainly develop devotional service unto your lotus feet. For this reason I have come to you and have fallen down at your lotus feet. Etabole prabhure loya tataya basila prabhure prakashananda puchite lagila. After saying this, Prakashananda Saraswati sat down with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to question the Lord as follows. Mayavadi korela jata dosharakyan sabi e janiya charjara kalpita vyakyan. Prakashananda Saraswati said, we can understand the faults you have pointed out in the Mayavad philosophy. All the explanations given by Shankar Acharya are imaginary. Sutra korila tumi mukyarta bibaran tashuni sabar hoila chamatkaraman. My dear Lord, whatever direct meaning you have given when explaining the Brahma Sutra is certainly very wonderful to all of us. Tumita Ishwara Tomara Ache Sarva Shakti Sankepa Rupe Kaha Tumi Shunite Hoimati. You are the Supreme Personality of God, and therefore you have inconceivable energies. I wish to hear from you briefly about the Brahma Sutra. Prabhu kohe amijiva aditucha gyan vyasa sutra gambira arta vyasa bhagavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am an ordinary living being and therefore my knowledge is very insignificant. However, the meaning of the Brahma Sutra is very grave because its author, Vyasadeva, is the Supreme Lord himself. So Vyasadeva is an empowered incarnation of the Lord, Shakti-vesh avatar. An ordinary living being cannot actually understand the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. One can understand the meaning if he hears it from the authority Vyasadeva himself. For this purpose, Vyasadeva gave a commentary on the Brahma Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. He had been instructed to do this by his spiritual master Narada. Of course, Shankar Acharya distorted the meaning of the Brahma Sutra because he had a motive to serve. He wanted to establish Vedic knowledge in place of the atheistic knowledge spread by Lord Buddha. All these necessities are there according to time and circumstances. Neither Lord Buddha nor Shankar Acharya is to be blamed. The time required such an explanation for the understanding of various types of atheists. The conclusion is that one cannot understand the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra without going through Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore further explains the matter in the following verses. Tara sutrarartha kon jiva nahi jane ateva apane sutrartha koryache vyakyane. The purport of the Vedanta Sutra is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand, but Vyasadeva, out of his causeless mercy, has personally explained the meaning. Jai Sutra Karta Se Jari Koraye Vyakyan Tabe Sutrara Mula Arta Lokara Hoy Gyan. If the Vedanta Sutra is explained by Vyasadeva himself, who has written it, its original meaning can be understood by the people in general. Pranabera Jayarta Gayatrite Se Hoy Searta Chatushlokite Vivariya Koi. The meaning of the sound vibration Omkara is present in the Gayatri Mantra. The same is elaborately explained in the 4 shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam known as the Chatushloki. Brahmare Ishvara Chatushloki Jay Kohila Brahmanarade Se Upadesha Koila. Whatever was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma in those 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam was also explained to Narada by Lord Brahma. Narada se arta vyasare kohila shuni veda vyasamane vichara korila. Whatever Lord Brahma told Narad Muni was again explained by Narad Muni to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva later considered these instructions in his mind. Ayartamar Sutara Vyakyanurup Bhagavat Koriba Sutra Bhashya Swarup. Srila Vyasadeva considered that whatever he had received from Narad Muni as an explanation of Omkara, he would elaborately explain in his book Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Brahma Sutra. The sound vibration Omkara is the root of Vedic knowledge. Omkara is known as the Mahavakya, or supreme sound. Whatever meaning is in the supreme sound Omkara is further understood in the Gayatri Mantra. Again, this same meaning is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 4 shlokas known as the Chatushloki, which begin with the words Aham Evasam Evagre. The Lord says, only I existed before the creation. From this statement, 4 shlokas have been composed, and those are known as the Chatushloki. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself informed Lord Brahma about the purport of the Chatushloki. Again, Lord Brahma explained this to Narad Muni, and Narad Muni explained it to Srila Vyasadeva. This is the Parampara system, the disciplic succession. The import of Vedic knowledge, the original word pranava, has been explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The conclusion is that the Brahma Sutra is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Chari Veda Upadishade Jatakichu Hoy Tara Arta Loya Vyasa Korila Sanchoy. Vyasadeva collected whatever Vedic conclusions were in the 4 verses and 108 Upanishads and placed them in the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra. Jai Sutre Jairik Vishaya Bachan Bhagavate Sairik Shloke Nibandan. In the Vedanta Sutra, the purport of all Vedic knowledge is explained, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same purport has been explained in 18,000 verses. Ateva Brahma Sutra Bhashya Shri Bhagavat Bhagavat Shloka Upanishad Kohe Ekmat. Therefore, it is to be concluded that the Brahma Sutra is explained vividly in Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, what is explained in the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam has the same purport as what is explained in the Upanishads. Atma Vasham Idam Vishwam Jat Kinchit Jagatyam Jagat Tena Chaktena Bhunjita Madgrida Kashasviddanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things for oneself that are set aside as one's quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. Bhagavatera Sambandha Abhideya Prayojan Shatu Shlokite Prakata Tarakoryache Lakan. The essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, our relationship with the Supreme Lord, our activities in that connection, and The goal of life is manifest in the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam known as the Chatushloki. Everything is explained in those verses. So Mahaprabhu talks about Sambandha Abhideyam Prayojana being present in the Srimad Bhagavatam and especially shown in the Chatushloki. That means Sambandha, relationship, Abhideya, devotional service, and Prayojana, the goal of love of Godhead. Ami Sambandha Tattva Amar Jnana Vigyan Amapaite Sarana Bhakti Abhideyanam. Lord Krishna says, I am the center of all relationships. Knowledge of me and the practical application of that knowledge is actual knowledge. Approaching me for devotional service is called Abhideya. Sadanera Fall Prema Mula Prayojan Se Premi Pai Jiva Mara Sevan. By rendering devotional service, one gradually rises to the platform of love of Godhead. That is the chief goal of life. On the platform of love of Godhead, one is eternally engaged in the service of the Lord. Jnanam paramaguyam me yadvigyana samanvitam sarahasyam tad angam cha grihana garitam maya. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but full of mysteries. The quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but full of mysteries. 18 Tatvami Kohinu Tomare Jivatumi 18 Narive Janibare. O Brahma, I shall explain all these truths to you. Since you are a living being, Jiva, without my explanation, you will not be able to understand your relationship with me, devotional activity, and life's ultimate goal. Or Sambandha Abhideya and Prayojana, it says. O Brahma, I shall explain all these truths to you, since you are a living being, a jiva. Without my explanation, you will not be able to understand your relationship with me, devotional activity, and life's ultimate goal. Jaichyamara Swarup, Jaichyam Amar Stiti, Jaichyamar Guna, Karma Shad Aishwarya Shakti. I shall explain to you my actual form and situation, my attributes, activities, and 6 opulences. Amara kripaye sab svurka tomare metabolitin tattva kohilata hare. Lord Krishna assured Brahma, by my mercy all these things will be awakened in you. Saying this, the Lord began to explain the 3 truths, tattvas, to Lord Brahma. Yavanaham yata bhavo yadrupa gunakarmaka tataiva tattva vijnanam astute mad anugrahat. By my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Srishtira purve shad aishvarya purna amita hoye prapancha prakriti purusha amate loye. Before the creation of the cosmic manifestation, the Lord said, I existed, and the total material energy, material nature, and the living entities also existed in me. Shristi kore taramadye ame praveshiye prapancha je dekasab seha ame hoye. After creating cosmic manifestation, I entered into it. Whatever you see in the cosmic manifestation is but an expansion of my energy. After creating the cosmic manifestation, I entered into it. Whatever you see in the cosmic manifestation is but an expansion of my energy. Pralaya avishta ame purnahoye prakrita prapuncha pai amate loye. When the whole universe dissolves, I remain full in myself, and everything that was manifested is again preserved in me. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sarasat param paschad aham yad etatscha yo vashisheta somsmiyaham. Prior to the cosmic manifestation, only I exist, and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. Prior to the cosmic manifestation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the first verse of the Chatushloki. For an explanation, you can see Madhya-lila. So this is the first verse of Chatushloki. Aham evasam gre nanyad yat sarasat param paschadaham yad etatscha yo vasisheta somsmiyaham. Prior to the cosmic manifestation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. So the Lord is not stating he's not part of the material creation. He existed before the creation, during the creation, and after the annihilation of the creation, only he exists. So, aham eva shloke aham tinabar purnaishvarya shri vigraha stitira nirdar. In the verse beginning, aham eva, the word aham is expressed 3 times. In the beginning, there are the words aham eva. In the second line, there are the words paschadaham. At the end are the words somsmiyaham. This aham indicates the Supreme Person. By the repetition of aham, the Transcendental Personality, who is complete with 6 opulence, is confirmed. Che vigraha nahimane nirakaramane tare niras skaribe korila nirdarane. Impersonalists do not accept the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is stressed in this verse in order to impress upon them the necessity of accepting him. Therefore, the word aham is mentioned 3 times. To stress something important, one repeats it 3 times. Esab shabde hoy jnana vijnana vivek maya karya maya hoite ami vyatirik. Esab shabde hoy jnana vijnana vivek Taya karya maya hoite ami vyatirig. Lord Krishna continued, actual spiritual knowledge and its practical application are considered in all these sound vibrations. Although the external energy comes from me, I am different from it. Lord Krishna continued, actual spiritual knowledge and its practical application are considered in all these sound vibrations. Although the external energy comes from me, I am different from it. Jaishi Surya Rastani Masaye Avas Surya Vina Svatantra Tarana Hoy Prakash Sometimes a reflection of the sun is experienced in place of the sun, but its illumination is never possible independent of the sun. Reflection can only exist because the sun. So, Mayatita hoile hoy amara anubhav e sambandha tattva kohilun shuna arasab. When one is transcendentally situated, he can perceive me. This perception is the basis of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now let me further explain this subject matter. Ritirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yata baso yata tama. Ritirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani yadvidyad atmano mayam yata baso yata nama. What appears to be truth. Okay. Ritirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yata baso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is the second verse of the Chatushloki. So, Ritirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmanon mayam yata baso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Avideyas sadhana bhaktir shunaha vichar sarvajan deshakala dashate vyaptijar. Now please hear from me about the process of devotional service, which is applicable in any country for any person at all times and in all circumstances. Dharmari vishaye jaiche e chari vichar sadhana bhakti e chari vicharerapar. As far as religious principles are concerned, there is a consideration of the person, the country, the time, and the circumstance. In devotional service, however, there are no such considerations. Devotional service is transcendental to all such considerations. So devotional service, in this sense, is different than religion. As far as religious principles are concerned, there is a consideration of the person, the country, the time, and the circumstance. In devotional service, however, there are no such considerations. Devotional service is transcendental to all such considerations. Sarvadesha kalad dashai Janera kartavya guru pashe se bhakti prastavya shrotavya. It is therefore the duty of every man in every country, in every circumstance, and at all times to approach a bona fide spiritual master, question him about devotional service, and listen to him explain the process. Etavan eva jigyasham tattva Chigyasunatmana Anvaya Vyatire Kabyam Yatshat Sarvatra Sarvada Etavadeva Jigyasham Tattva Jigyasunatmana Anvaya Vyatire Kabyam Yatshat Sarvatra Sarvada. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know about the all-pervading truth. There's a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the fourth verse of the Chatushloki. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know about the all-pervading truth. Amate je priti se prema prayojan karya dware kohitara swarupalakan. So we've gone from the Chatu Shloki, from the first, the second, and then to the fourth. Then Mahaprabhu is explaining, he'll go back to the third. But here, a person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know about the all-pervading truth. Amate je priti se prema prayojan karya dware kohitara swarupa lakan. Supreme affection for me is called love of God, and that is the ultimate goal of life. Let me explain by a practical example the natural characteristics of such love. Panchabhuta jaiche bhutera bitare bahire bhakti gane svuriyami bahire antare. The five material elements are existing inside and outside of every living entity. Similarly, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, am manifest within the heart of the devotee as well as outside his body. Jata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu cha vacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu cha vacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is also the third verse of the Chatu Shloki. Bhaktama premi bandi jache ridoi bitare jahanetra paritahan dekaye amare. A highly elevated devotee can bind me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his heart by love. Wherever he looks, he sees me and nothing else. Vishrijati hridayam nayasya sakshad darir avasha bihi tobi amogadnasha pranaya rasanaya Sritangri Padma Nabhavati Bhagavata Pradana Ukta Vishrijati Hridayam Na Yashya Sakshad Darir Avasha Bihitobi Agoga Nasha Pranaya Rasanaya Dritangri Padma Nabhavati Bhagavata Pradana Ukta. Hari, the personality of Godhead, who destroys everything inauspicious for his devotees, does not leave the hearts of his devotees even if they remember him and chanted about him inattentively. This is because the rope of love always binds the Lord within the devotee's heart. Such devotees should be accepted as most elevated. Sarvabhuteshu yad pasyed bhagavad bhavam atmana bhutani bhagavati atmani eshad bhagavatottama. A person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Lord as the cause of all causes and understands that all things are situated in him. Person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Lord as the cause of all causes and understands that all things are situated in him. Gayantuch ucharamum eva samhata vichikyur unmataka yad vanadvanam praprachur akashavad antaram bahir bhuteshu shantam purusham vanaspatim. All the gopis assembled to chant the transcendental qualities of Krishna very loudly, and they began to wander from one forest to another like mad women. They began to inquire about the Lord, who is situated in all living entities internally and externally. Indeed, they even asked all the plants and vegetables about him, the Supreme Person. Ateva Bhagavate 18 koi. Ateva Bhagavate 18 koi sambandha videya prayojanamoy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, thus one's relationship with the Lord, activities in devotional service, and the attainment of the highest goal of life, love of Godhead, are the subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vedanti tat vavidas tatvam yadzgyanamadvayam Brahmati Paramatmeti Bhagavate Bhagavaniti Shabhyate. Vedanti tattvavidas tattvam yadzgyanamadvayam Brahmati Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. The absolute truth is known by the self-realized souls as a unified identity known by different names: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan Eka Ashedam Agra Agat Agra Atmatmanam Vidu Atme Chanu Gata Vatma Anana Mati Upalakshana. Bhagavan Eka Ashedam Agra Atmatmanam Vidu Atme Chanu Gata Vatma Anana Mati Upalakshana. Before the cosmic manifestation was created, all the creative propensity was merged into the Supreme Lord's person. At the time, all potencies and manifestations were presented in his personality. The Lord is the cause of all causes, and he is the all-attracting, the Lord is the cause of all causes, and he is the all-pervading, self-sufficient person. Before the creation, he existed with his spiritual potency in the spiritual world, wherein various Vaikuntha planets are manifested. So before the cosmic manifestation was created, the creative propensity was merged in the Supreme Lord's person. At that time, all potencies and manifestations were preserved in his personality. The Lord is the cause of all causes, and he is the all-pervading, self-sufficient person. Before the creation, he existed with his spiritual potency in the spiritual world, wherein various Vaikuntha planets are manifested. Ete chamsa kala pumsa krishnastu bhagavan svayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. All these incarnations of Godhead are either plenary portions or parts of the plenary portion of the Purusha avatars. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. In every age, he protects the world through his different features when the world is disturbed by the enemies of Indra. Eta sambandha shuna abhideya bhakti bhagavate pratishloke vyapate vyape jarastiti. Aita sambandha shuna abhideya bhakti bhagavate pratishloke vyape jara stiti. This is one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now please hear about the execution of devotional service. This principle pervades each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktyaham ekaya graya shraddhayatma priya sadam bhakti punati manishta shvapakan api sambhavat. Lord Krishna said, being very dear to the devotees and sadhus, I am attained through unflinching faith and devotional service. This Bhakti Yoga system, which gradually increases attachment for me, purifies a human being born among dog eaters. This is to say, everyone can be elevated to the spiritual platform by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Lord Krishna said, being very dear to the devotees and sadhus, I am attained through unflinching faith and devotional service. This Bhakti Yoga system, which gradually increases attachment for me, purifies even a living being born among dog eaters. That is to say, everyone can be elevated to the spiritual platform by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Na sarayati mam yogo, na sankyam dharma udava, na svadhyayas tapas tyago, yata bhaktir mamorjita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna said, my dear Uddhava, neither through Ashtanga Yoga, the mystic yoga system to control the senses, nor through impersonal monism, or an analytical study of the absolute truth, nor through study of the Vedas, nor through austerities, charity, or acceptance of sannyas can one satisfy me as much as by developing unalloyed devotional service unto me. Bhayam dvitiya binivesha tadshad ishada petasya viparyayo smriti tanmaya yato buddha abhajetam bhaktya bhaktyayika yesham gurudeva tatma. When the living entity is attracted by the external energy, which is separate from Krishna, he is overpowered by fear. Because he is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the material energy, his conception of life is reversed. In other words, instead of being the eternal servant of Krishna, he becomes Krishna's competitor. This is called viparyayo smriti. To nullify this mistake, one who is actually learned and advanced worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his spiritual master, worshipful deity and source of life. He thus worships the Lord by the process of unalloyed devotional service. Bhayam dutiya binivesha tadshad ishada petasya viparyayo smriti tanmaya yato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayika yesham gurudeva tatma. When the living entity is attracted by the material energy which is separate from Krishna, he is overpowered by fear because he is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the material energy. His conception of life is reversed. In other words, instead of being the eternal servant of Krishna, he becomes Krishna's competitor. This is called viparyayo smriti. To nullify this mistake, one who is actually learned and advanced worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his spiritual master, worshipful deity, and source of life. He thus worships the Lord by the process of unalloyed devotional service. Ebe shuna primaje mula prayojan Pulakashru Nrityagita Jahara Lagan Ebashuna Primaje Mula Prayojan Pulakashru Nrityagita Jahara Lagan. Now hear from me what actual love of God it is. It is the prime object of life and is symptomized by bodily trembling, tears in the eyes, chanting and dancing. Smaranta smarayantascha mito goga haram harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya bibrati udpulakam tonum. Smaranta smarayantascha mito goga haram harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya bibrati udpulakam tanum. Pure devotees manifest spiritual bodily symptoms of ecstatic love simply by remembering and reminding others of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who takes away everything inauspicious from the devotee. This position is attained by rendering devotional service according to the regulative principles and then rising to the platform of spontaneous love. Evam vratasva priyanama kirtya chatanurago drutachitta uchai hashati atto rodati roti gayati unmaravan nrityati lokabaya. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, and chants like a madman, not caring for outsiders. Ateva Bhagavata Sutrarartha Rup Nija Kritya Sutrar Nija Bhaya Swarup. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the actual meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. The author of the Vedanta Sutra is Vyasadeva, and he himself has explained those aphorisms in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Artoyam Ramasutranam Bharatartha Vinirnaya Gayatri Bhashya Ruposo Vedartha Paribrimita Purananam Samarupa Sakshad Bhagavatodita Sakshad Bhagavatodita Dvarasha Skanda Yukto Yam Shatavicheda Samyuta Granto Stadasa Sahasra Srimad Bhagavatabdida Artoyam Brahmasutranam Bharatartha Vinirnaya Gayatri Bhashya Ruposo Vedartha Paribrimita Puranam Samarupa Sakshad Bhagavatodita Dvarasha Skanda Yukto Yam Shata Vicheda Samyuta Grantos Stadasha Sahasra Srimad Bhagavatabhida. The meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is present in Srimad Bhagavatam. The full purport of the Mahabharata is also there. The commentary of the Brahma Gayatri is also there and fully expanded with all Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme Purana, and it was compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in whose incarnation as Vyasadeva. There are 12 cantos, 335 chapters, and 18,000 verses. Sarva Vediti Hasanam Saram Samudritam. Sarva Vedeti Hasanam Saram Samudritam. The essence of all Vedic literature and all histories has been collected in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadrasamrita Triptasya Nanyatra Shad Rati Kvachit. Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy. Whoever tastes the transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam, or the transcendental rasa of Srimad Bhagavatam, is never attracted to any other literature. Gayatrira arte e granta arambana satyam param sambandha dhimahi sarana prayojan. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an explanation of the Brahma Gayatri mantra. The absolute truth, Satyam Param, indicates the relationship, and we meditate, Dhimahi, on him, indicates the execution of devotional service and the ultimate goal of life. Janmariyasha yatonvayad iteratas chartesh vabhigyasvarat tene brahmaridaya adikavaye muyanti yat suraya tejo varimridam yata vinimayo yatra trisargom risha damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representation of water seen in fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So I'm going to stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue. Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Garadhara Shiva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Garadhara Shiva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath, Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Rasa Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Rasa Raghunath, H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan, H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan, Jaite Vignana Shavishta Puran, Jaite Vignana Shavishta Puran, H.I. Gosai Jarmui Taradas, H.I. Gosai Jarmui Taradas, Kasabara Para Renu Mora Panchagas, Kasabara Para Renu Mora Panchagas, Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas, Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas, Janame More Abhilas, Janame More Abhilas, H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas, H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas, Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash, Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash, Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan, Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan, Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Manjai Aman, Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Manjai Aman, Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas, Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas, Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudas, Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudas, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gan Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyashta Tara Sarashi Srimad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyashta Tara Sarashi Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharyash Tatara Sadashi Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Srila Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Ragana, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Ragana, Shad Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Guna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. All the assembled devotees ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki jai.